Shubor naga Snem Jong Nong San Hima.
Kynhun Myntri Jong Sarkar Jala Meghalaya negasngi hak jingi kendu jongki kalaya keren halor bun kimat kibadon kam. Ki kato kani kipang kiba Kynhun Myntri kalaya keren kadai halor ka Swachh Bharat Mission, ka Swachh Bharat Brahmin Phase 2 kanyarap ya ka barok ki jala hakari. Ya kapisa na kabenta kani ka skim an sapelaj katkum ka jing pendon kam jong ka jala. Hapo ka jala jongi namar ngimdon ya ka panchayat ka sorkar kalarai ban IT ya kapisa saki dorbar snong ban pej ya kani. Ka Kynhun Myntri kala Mynjur ya ka Housing Subordinate Statistical Service Rule arhajar arpau kani ka service rule kadai man penbha ya ka jingtung kam ha ka kardan jong ka Assistant Research Officer Research Assistants but ka Directorate of Housing ya kani lara sya ka Cabinet banyo ya ka jing Mynjur. Nagalang ka Kynhun Myntri kala ay ka jing Mynjur ya ka kerteng jong kiban sayo ya ka awon ha ka sngi rakhe ya ka jing dap sop khanai Snem jong ka jala kaban salong ha ka arphuai trek kala langkot arhajar arphuai.
So I'd like to inform all of you that a meeting of the cabinet was held today, the 14th of January, and this was chaired by the Honorable Chief Minister, and the following agendas or items were taken up, were discussed and were cleared by the cabinet. The first one pertains to the fulfillment of the conditions mentioned in the Swachh Bharat Mission Gramin Phase 2 operational guidelines in respect of release of funds, and this matter was brought up and it was made known to the cabinet that as per Rule 16 of the operational guidelines relating to the release of funds, the Swachh Bharat Mission Gramin Phase 2 shall support all states and union territories of India. Funds will be released to the states' UTs based on their performance and ability to achieve program results. States shall become eligible to release funds based on attainment of the following conditions. So these conditions were namely that the state cabinet passes a resolution to implement the SBMG Phase 2 and commits timely release of state share for the program. Secondly, the state has to set up suggested institutional arrangements for implementation and management of the SBMG Phase 2. Thirdly, the state agrees to devolve funds to the Gram Panchayats for co-financing of SBMG components. And lastly, develops a project implementation plan and annual implementation plan. So this matter was brought to the cabinet. In the state of Meghalaya, since we do not have Gram Panchayats, as the practice was followed in SBMG Phase 1, in place of Gram Panchayats, the Village Water and Sanitation Committees, the VWSCs, were formed, and the project under SBMG were implemented through these Village Sanitation and Water Committees, Village Water and Sanitation Committees. So likewise, in the case of SBMG 2 also, that would be followed. So the approval of the cabinet was sought for passing a resolution and the commitment for timely release, and also to agree to devolve funds to the Village Water and Sanitation Committees for co-financing of the SBMG components. So these were discussed, and the cabinet accordingly approved the proposal. So the second agenda was the proposal to approve the Meghalaya Housing Subordinate Statistical Service Rules 2020. The Meghalaya Housing Subordinate Statistical Service Rules 2020 is meant to regulate the method of recruitment, promotion and service matters of persons appointed to the posts of Assistant Research Officer, Research Assistant and Investigator in the Directorate of Housing. This was framed by the department and was placed for the consideration of the cabinet. The views of personnel in and AR departments, the law department and finance was sought, and they have all given their approval to the service rules, and this was approved by the cabinet. Recommendations of the standing committee of the Interstate Council Secretariat, the Ministry of Home Affairs, on the recommendations of the Punji Commission, they were discussed, and their certain views were raised by the honorable members of the cabinet, and those have been incorporated, and this will be further discussed, but this discussion was taken up today. This is something that the Punji Committee was, the Punji Commission was set up, I think in the year 2010, if I'm not wrong, and the commission was set up to look into how center-state relations can be better improved, and other matters were there also regarding the role and the powers of governors, the equality of seats to states in the Rajya Sabha. All these matters were there. Then the making the Finance Commission a permanent body. Many agendas are there. However, this is just one or two that I can mention about that is there in front of me. But I think more details will be communicated to you once we have the final recommendations. Yes, it has been sought. The views of every state government have been sought regarding the standing committee. Suggestions vis-a-vis the Punji Commission, what do you call it, suggestions and the report. So, as you know, the Punji Committee gave certain recommendations, and this was then taken up by the Standing Committee of the Interstate Council Secretariat of the Ministry of Home Affairs. This was then the states were asked on their opinions on the Standing Committee vis-a-vis the Punji Commission report, and our views were sought about that, regarding that. So that was discussed in the cabinet, and the discussion will continue, and after that only the final recommendations will be sent to Ministry of Home Affairs. The Meghalaya Regulation of Gaming Ordinance 2021. I'd like to inform you that in a bid to increase revenue collection by ways of improving the existing taxation acts, and through embracing the usage of technology, and also by tapping new resources to generate revenue, the taxation department has seen that through the use of information technology, gaming today has emerged as one of the most popular pastimes globally, and Meghalaya is no exception. And the gaming through the use of information technology generates revenue to the entity involved in the operation of online gaming server through acceptance of stake money and advertisements. So in order to regulate gaming within the state and to bring revenue to the state government, we felt it necessary to enact a law for the same, and therefore the draft ordinance was placed in front of the cabinet for its approval. And the views of the law department, the finance department had been sought, and both have given their approval to it, and it was discussed today in the cabinet, and the cabinet has approved the proposal to notify the Meghalaya Regulation of Gaming Ordinance 2021. As you all know, is something that is already taking place in the state of Meghalaya. Gaming can be in the form of online gaming, can be in the form of you sitting in front of a computer screen and playing poker, probably, because we are regulating it. Right now there is no regulatory mechanism to make sure to monitor the whole gaming, online gaming scene that is taking place in Meghalaya. So by regulating it, it's not just a regulatory mechanism, but it's also a mechanism to ensure that those who are engaging in this, they will have to also make sure that they give revenue to the state for this. The Meghalaya Right to Public Services Rules 2021. As you all know, the Meghalaya Right to Public Services Act 2020 was notified on the 24th of November 2020 in the Meghalaya Gazette. You all already know that the objective of the Act is to provide for the delivery of notified public services to the citizens in the state of Meghalaya within the stipulated time limit, including liabilities of the government servants in case of default. So, to ensure the delivery of this act, rules had to be framed, and these rules have been brought to the cabinet today, and these rules have been framed so that the implementation of the various provisions of the act can take place. So these rules provide for, namely, one, procedure for filling appeal to the appellate authority and the State Public Delivery Commission, and procedure to be followed by the appellate authority and the State Public Service Delivery Commission in deciding the appeal. Secondly, forms for filling the appeals. Thirdly, duties of the designated officers for display of information relating to services and the issue of acknowledgement. The composition of officers and staff of the public service, State Public Services Delivery Commission. So the draft rules were placed and before the cabinet, and the cabinet has approved the draft rules. It's licensing. So anyone who comes and wants to partake in this industry, then they will have to get necessary license from the government. And when we have a mechanism in place whereby we then know who are the players in this field who are operating in the state of Meghalaya, then we have an agreement with them when we issue them licenses that they have to follow these strict guidelines and strict rules. And if anyone has a breach of or he does not conform to these rules, then we take action against them. So that framework was required, that was not existent, and that is what we are doing right now. Not the draft, but the speech for Republic Day 2021 was also placed in front of the cabinet, and the cabinet has made certain suggestions for changes in the speech. These will be incorporated and accordingly will be circulated to all the officials who will be reading them out on Republic Day. Recommendations of the Advisory Committee for the Meghalaya Day Award 2021. The following names were given by the Advisory Committee for the U Tirot Singh Award for Art and Literature, the Pathogan N Sangma Award for Social Services, and the U Kyang Nangba Award for Sports. And the names which were given were Shri Raphael Wajri for the U Tirot Singh Award for Arts and Literature, Reverend Dal Singh M. Sangma for the Pathogan N Sangma Award for Social Services, and Shri Hame Shania Suyam for the U Kyang Nangba Award for Sports and Games. So these were approved by the cabinet, and these names have been approved by the cabinet.